to the second episode of High and Empowered. We are here today with Oren, Jackie, and Amanda. How are you all doing today? Do you have anything on your mind that you'd like to start off with?
Oh, wow. Do I have anything on my mind that I'd like to start off with? Well, first I want to say I'm so grateful that we have Amanda and Jackie here today. You guys have a very exciting podcast. You have very exciting things that you have swirling and whirling around you guys, and I want to hear about everything. Today's show is going to be about elevating relationships, empowering the relationship you have with yourself, the relationship you have with your friends, your lover, with your boss. So it's business and personal relationships as well. We're going to be talking about using a entrepreneurial business mindset in your personal life. That way, when you can put some things in from your business life to your personal life, like organizing and setting goals and intentions, that right there is starting to change the mindset. And when you change your mindset, everything changes around you. So today we have Amanda and Jackie. Tell us, you guys have a podcast. What's going on? What's the story?
Do you want to go first together?
I know I just throw you guys right into the fire like that, but that's how it is. Look, I'm burning up over here. From one day to the next, it was cold last time we had a podcast and I had a scarf. Today, it's like I'm in the middle of a sauna. So I think that's what
the struggle is real. No, I'm kidding. No, but definitely that's life though. And getting thrown into the fire is kind of how it always is. It's just that sometimes the fire seems familiar because we've gone through that particular trial before. And sometimes it feels entirely new, but essentially that's how it always is. You're always in the fire of the potential of each moment. And you can go in any direction. So I and Jackie and myself are extremely excited to be here, and definitely very, very honored to be your first guest after Andrew and Ray were here last week. And we thought, you can have us on as many times as you need. And then you're like, next week, we're like, yeah, sure. Next week, let's do it. So thank you so much for having us. And Dualistic Unity is a wonderful and ongoing conversation that doesn't always feel pleasant, but I really appreciate that everybody shows up for themselves and empowers themselves. And so when I thought about your podcast and you, Julia, and Oren, High and Empowered, I was like, okay, so we've been a very functional pot smoker for the last 20 few years. And we felt empowered because, in my opinion, I do think that the real power comes from within. So as much as you feel empowered by others, I feel like you have other people give you the space, and in that space you empower yourself, because as much as I could tell you you're amazing, you're brilliant, you're strong, you're adaptable, you can pivot, if you don't agree with that, then I can't empower you, can I? So in my opinion, the true empowerment comes from within. And so I'm grateful that we all are sharing the experience of empowering ourselves, whether it feels amazing and you feel on top of the world, or you feel like you don't know left from right, but you're just going forward anyways because you'd rather try than be paralyzed by your fears and assumptions. So I feel incredibly grateful and excited to be here. And I did no preparing other than showing up as myself and smoking a little bit beforehand, because I think that's all that was really suggested, but not required.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Amanda. Yeah, guys, thanks for having us on. This is so exciting that there's already a new segment happening. I'm like, my gosh, we're growing and expanding so quickly. And like, I'm just really excited for you guys to go on this journey. And like, for us, the process of starting to do this was very eye-opening in a lot of ways. And for me, it's been a constant exercise in building faith in myself, which I think is all that being empowered really is, right? Is just trusting yourself to make decisions and throw yourself in to what, every time you come on a live stream, you're throwing yourself into a vat of uncertainty, right? But that's really every single decision that we're making. So
it's the strength that you're bringing. And that's empowerment. Empowerment isn't just being empowered or empowering others. It is finding that inner lion, lioness. Look, when we first started talking on the first podcast, I was so excited to hear you guys are going to be on the next one. I was already thinking, let's really talk. Let's talk. Look, don't get me wrong. Men, they talk about relationship. They don't understand relationship. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's the opposite way. But in that's literally how we think. And so when I say empowering relationships, you are finding the inner strength. You're finding the inner lioness. You are amazing. We need to remind I don't even know what's coming out of my mouth. But you're amazing. And in that amazingness, this is what we started talking about in the first episode, the journey of Julia. Julia finding her inner lioness. Regardless, it doesn't have to come out with the same enthusiasm or energy that I possess. What I have is demonic. I don't even know what's going on. It comes out. I'm like an energy vampire. I will take energy from everybody in the room, even in a podcast. But it's just how I thrive. This is where I find my lion. My tiger comes from the power that I get from others. And so when I give, I feel like I'm already getting back. And with Julia, I want you to find what makes you feel like you want to rock and roll. Inside, outside, where you don't see, I keep saying the people, but there are no people. And, you're just finding your power. And that's what also helps develop who you are as a person. So I love that you guys are. Now, your podcast what is it about? I mean, what's your main, what is your thing in your podcast? Like when I say that, like your vibe, your thing.
Our vibe is our vibe. Our vibe is trying to chill as hard as we possibly can and just shoot the shit. That really, it's like there's no really underlying theme because we're just kind of showing up. And the fun thing about Dualistic Unity, for me at least, is that it's so focused on free flowing and just coming as you are and allowing things to unfold. And in doing so, I think maybe certain patterns or themes are discovered that necessarily I wasn't like intentionally trying to talk about or bring into the conversation, but they kind of arise naturally. Sort of in the same vein as Andrew and Ray's podcast, like we talk about a lot of different things than them just because, I don't know, we're different people, but it's all
experiences.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is just building that faith in ourselves and just like at the same time marveling at what this experience is and the experience of being Jackie, but also being everything else, like experiencing this world as your mind and how like amazing that is, and just sort of reveling in this experience and trying to navigate it the best we can, right? Talking about the shit that we go through and just trying to be as real as possible. Like we also have a live segment called Do You Real? And that's really the whole point of it, is to just be ourselves as unapologetically as possible. And it's not about the product of the podcast. It's about the process of us constantly showing up and just allowing whatever potential that we have within us, right, to be expressed. And in whatever direction that may go, we're not really intentionally trying to steer it. It's sort of just watching it unfold. And it's a novel way of like doing something. Never before in my life would I be like, yeah, I'm going to start a podcast and I'm not going to know what I'm going to talk about. I'm just going to show up. Like that's a different way of being, but that's what we're, I guess, if you want to say, like, we're just trying to demonstrate that way of being is possible and prove it to ourselves, really, that you can just kind of sit in this space of uncertainty and be okay. You don't have to rely on beliefs, and you don't need to rely on power structures and hierarchies and your external environment in order to feel the value of your experience, right? And, smoking a lot of weed on the way and just really taking everything in. So
That's empowering. And
mhm.
going in without a script, going in with just, hey, this is what's going on in our lives. This is what's going on around us. That's empowering. That's strength. You are pulling from your inner strength, coming out to the world saying, hey, I'm just here to talk. That's empowerment. That's actually today, funny enough, elevating relationships. You are elevating the relationship that the two of you have together, but you're also elevating it with your audience by being the true, authentic you, by coming at them with, look, this is what's happening. This is what we're talking about. This is a chit chat. We don't know where it's going to go, but this is it. Yes. See, that's fantastic. That's empowerment. That's even directly what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Diving in when you don't know what to expect is something that can be uncomfortable, but it's definitely worthwhile, because that's being authentic, and showing up is in the end a lot more comfortable, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. So that's something to get used to, and just be who you want to be, say what you want to say. People will have their responses, but a lot of times how we view other people is based on our own personal biases. And that's something that I was actually looking at just yesterday, because I'm still in college. We were looking at like cognitive biases, cognitive dissonance, all that sort of stuff, and beliefs, and how they can really shape a lot of how we see reality. But going back to Amanda, what you were saying earlier about being a productive stoner, I definitely resonate with that as well, because I do smoke daily at the moment, but still am able to maintain high grades in school, do chores around the house, and all of that sort of stuff. And it's just really about having faith in yourself, like Jackie was talking about, just knowing that you can do things, if you put your mind to it, even if you don't know the outcome. You just kind of have to get in there and see where it takes you, I guess.
You feel that your cannabis use at any time, or your broccoli use, whatever the hell they want to call it now, your cannabis use, just say whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, it's called by many names. Your cannabis use, does it help with how you deal with people? I mean, does it help with how open you become, or, we carry a lot of baggage in every conversation. We judge people. We judge ourselves. We're more judging ourselves, and in the judgment of ourselves, we judge others. And we come to a conversation already with a point of view, with looking at a person in a certain way, without knowing who they are. We let the book, we let the cover judge the book. And when we should never be like that, we should always be. And even myself, if I am jaded because of a situation, maybe not with that person, but I will carry that with me. And so with cannabis, I don't. So, at all. From one person to the next, I don't hold that,
Yeah, I find that it can help a little bit with overthinking, but if you're really stuck in a certain thought loop, that can still kind of be there, but it does help me to relax personally. I know that it can affect people differently, but I do find that it kind of helps to soothe overthinking, because something I mentioned in our new Discord channel actually was just that it can feel like two opposing forces like going against each other, because like the cannabis is kind of trying to relax you, whereas like if you try to stay anxious, it feels very uncomfortable, but you can still be stuck in that if you keep thinking the same thoughts. But if you give in to the flow of things, like flow state and that sort of thing, you can kind of just let yourself relax and set whatever was causing you that stress down a little bit easier, I find.
But see, a lot of it's like how you go into it. When I say that, if I'm stressed out and I go smoke, I'm less stressed out, but I'm still, I'm still in that mindset. I'm still going to go down that tunnel of thought process. And really it's about elevating yourself inside as well. So you guys, Amanda, Jackie, y'all are cannabis users. And
oh yeah,
Oh yeah, no, we're not going to deny it. Yes. Do you find that helps elevate your personal relationships, your business relationships? And I mean, I believe in cannabis use in business. When I say that, we approach differently, we sell differently, we work more holistically. So in your cannabis use, do you see that on multiple levels helping or maybe taking away?
It depends. So like I at the moment still work in a very traditional corporate environment, and so it is cannabis use is not encouraged in the workplace, definitely not it's not encouraged out on your personal time. And those business interactions and experiences can be warm, because there's a work culture that is warm and it's fostered to be warm, and but it's very rare. I've worked in a lot of offices, and the office that I work at now has always created an environment where we all felt like a second family. And so although we weren't smoking together, we had that social familiar kind of bond. Um, and when I think about my personal life, where I have smoked and had amazing conversations and did like projects at someone's house, and we're putting up shelves, or we're building a bookcase, and we're smoking and we're working and we're productive. And so cannabis has always felt like a social thing to consume, because I don't really feel like calling it a drug makes sense, because drug always had like such a negative connotation in my mind. Like I always thought of, cannabis more like a medicine or more like a herb, so it never felt right to kind of call it a drug, but it is a social drug, just like alcohol. And people feel more relaxed when they're drinking and when they're smoking, but you can achieve that without it, because it's about the mindset that you're experiencing. So I have used cannabis and felt it more relaxed, but I also am a very high energy person, so I really liked that effect. But there were certain times where I would smoke and I would take a test and I would ace it. I would smoke, I would write an essay, I'd get it, I would crush it. I would smoke, I would study, I'd consume information, I'd memorize it, I'd regurgitate it. It never affected my academic pursuits, and I was very ambitious. So and I always felt ambitious whether I was smoking or not. But I think that's more a trait of my personality that I created than it is as a result of the cannabis. The cannabis was just a tool that I used to amplify my personality that I was building. And I do think that we bring baggage to every conversation because we bring the weight of our identity with us. And that is the only weight that I really feel, is the weight of my identity. It's the weight of my expectations that are tied to that identity. So that's where it feels like the weight and the baggage. That's what it feels like from my perspective when I'm in a conversation, both sober and on cannabis. But like any tool, the tool is supposed to just help you express you existing as yourself. And when you think you need it, that's when I think any tool can become a crutch. And so I think the way that cannabis has been displayed, the narrative is that it's a path to destruction. It's a crutch that you'll never get off of. And yet I know people that literally say, don't talk to me unless I've had 3 cups of coffee. That sounds like an addict to me. And that's
That's a
totally
crutch.
acceptable. Yeah,
That's a crutch.
that's a crutch,
Look,
but it's a totally acceptable crutch.
I'm smoking and I'm drinking coffee. I have multiple crutches. Life is hard. Look, I'm going to tell you, life is difficult. We all get PTSD from life, from our jobs, from traffic, from terrible television shows. So if it's a crutch I can never get off of, fine. I'll never get off of it. I will be strong and admit that I'll never get off of this. And Jackie, I also want to hear from you. But before I forget, Julia, you were talking about flow state. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is self-reflection. Being able to calm yourself, being able to set your intentions. I want to hear more about this flow state. I was just thinking in the back, I'm like, oh my God, that sounds like something right there. That's to be able to write with what we're talking about, be able to help change the direction of your mood, your attitude, your vibration, because that's all we are. Anyways, sorry, Jackie.
Yeah, this whole conversation just reminds me of the first time I got really high. I took I had a homemade edible, and that thing, wow, I was on Mars. But I remember vividly sitting there and feeling it hit me, and I was like, my feet are melting into the floor. Like it just felt like for the first time I felt this level of relaxation that was uncomfortable to me. I was like, what is going on? Like I have to keep moving. But I recognize that feeling now. Now it's something because I've been smoking for probably 6 years now. Like,
But is it ever
um,
as strong? Like when
huh?
I say like that feeling you had that one time when
Yeah.
you first tried it, have you ever had it like that again?
Yes.
As
But
extreme, but more controlled?
maybe not. Yeah. Maybe, well, the first time you experience something, it's always going to be, different, but I've definitely been there before. It's just, and that's the feeling, even if I just have a little bit of a puff of a joint, right? Just the feeling of my body relaxing and sinking in almost. That's what it feels like. And I remember at that time, like when I first experienced it, being so uncomfortable because I was so used to living in this state of tension and control and like holding myself together and behaving in like a very specific way, like very intentionally, always keeping in mind how I was being perceived. And so at first, when I tried weed, it actually made it more difficult for me to socialize because I was relaxed. And the fact that I was relaxing was making me uncomfortable because I wasn't used to relaxing and I felt out of control. And, the fact is, the cannabis is showing you that you are always not in control. You've never been in control, right? And so it's just a good reminder to loosen up a little bit. And for me, yeah, I went through college smoking weed a lot with my roommates. I wasn't smoking before class and stuff. For me, the balance with weed has been an amazing teacher for me, just in terms of like life and navigating a gray area and like building my own relationship with things and my own like systems and really listening to how my body responds. Like for me, I cannot smoke and write a paper because I'll just get distracted, or like I won't be able to remember what I read. But if Amanda can read novels, high as hell, all power to her. For me, I love smoking in a social context. Like for me, that's how I started smoking. It was, like all of my roommates, we'd go to school during the day, we'd go do our jobs, we'd finish our homework, and at the end of the day, we'd gather around the bong in the living room and we'd listen to music and we'd have conversations and just relax and let go of the day.
There's a different
And
feeling in it. And you're
yeah.
absolutely right. And you hit right on that because smoking in a group, smoking with friends, it's the frequency we all put off. And it's the vibe we all catch where it's funnier, it's sweeter, it tastes better. The air is gorgeous. I mean, it's just the things around us. And it's exactly that. And alone, I mean, yeah, it's good. It's nice. But, I prefer a powwow. I prefer passing around the peace pipe. I prefer gaining and sharing in the moment and the knowledge and the energy created. That's what
Yeah.
I get excited about. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
smoke sesh is like, oh, sorry. I just wanted to say real quick,
okay.
a smoke sesh is like almost ceremonial in a way. Like it hits at that like ritualistic, like our ritualistic history. I think, like we evolved being in community with, the people around us and, coming together for ceremonies and celebrations and for feasts. And like it's in the same way alcohol is like a social tonic. I think weed definitely is as well. And for me, every time I've smoked with somebody else, it's brought us closer because we let our guard down a little bit. So that's the beauty in it, right? It just makes the uncertainty and of life a little bit more clear, helps you to relax a little bit. And then in that space, like your authentic self is able to come out more easily. You're more present, and like sensations are enhanced. So it's like it really allows you to sink into the present and be yourself just a little bit easier. And I think that also has like a compounding effect throughout your life. Like all the stoners that I know are relatively relaxed people, right? And they usually are a little bit more easygoing and like can laugh at themselves and are just a little bit more open to experience, I would say, just because it's it's not necessary in order to achieve relaxation, right? Like you can embody the mindset of cannabis all the time, but it's for me it's harder to feel that feeling in my body. Like the cannabis kind of just helps you get there, but you know, I've gotten there through yoga, through meditation, you know, just by relaxing. And that's how I felt. Honestly, I felt like I was high the entire time at the DU retreat, even when I wasn't smoking. So it's not a necessary thing, but it's also like when we think about in comparison to the quote unquote drugs that people are using right now, like especially alcohol, like alcohol being the dominant drug in terms of like the social scene, to me, I just feel like that's building the walls up more. Alcohol like builds the walls up more, and you look at a drunk person, you're like, you're not even here right now, like you're not, like you are gone. But when you're high as fuck with somebody, you're like, you're right here and we're vulnerable as hell right now, and it's really uncomfortable, but we're connecting.
But that's it.
Yeah.
We're connecting. We're being real. Look, it's something that the world is lacking so much of now is that true connection. Just to talk to somebody, not for wanting anything at all other than to have that truest connection with someone. That is what we've forgotten about. And getting high, we do it without realizing. In groups, I wouldn't talk to everybody. I mean, I do. I talk to everybody. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people sit there and they meld in, which they're fine with, but they want to talk to people. They want to involve themselves. They want to meet new people. And even in groups, when we're not getting high, even just drinking, people don't. They're like, I'm not. But when I'm getting high, it's like, hey, how are you? Just because I want nothing but your connection. I want nothing but the energy that we're sharing. And that is everything to me. I mean, but it's that I think is one of the things I preach silently about cannabis is the reconnecting of the world, the reconnecting of people. And in cannabis, it takes off some of those layers. And so we need those layers removed. Like you were saying, it changes the high. Even when you're not high, the frequency now of that room, of the people, just it uplifted you and you are high. You are on that frequency that we wish we were there all the time. And that's why I want to hear more about this flow state. What is this? What's going on there? Because I've heard you mention it before.
But similar to what Jackie was just touching on, I was just going to bring up like using cannabis can really make you more vulnerable, let your guard down. And then going back to the alcohol thing, like alcohol is very normalized in comparison to weed. And then there are benefits and downfalls to both, but then all of the negative effects of alcohol are kind of just brushed under the rug a lot easier than cannabis. And in like the advertising industry as well, you'll see lots of commercials about different alcoholic drinks and things. Like there are specific requirements for advertising that kind of thing, but then marijuana, cannabis, that's totally different. Like it's not normalized in the same way. Now we're making progress, and the cannabis industry is changing a lot and things are being legalized across the world in more areas, but alcohol is definitely more talked about and more normalized, more accepted in a workplace setting as well, or like not while you're on the job, but like in business meetings, even like having a drink is a lot more normalized than smoking cannabis. But going back to flow state, I think it goes back to vulnerability as well, and just putting yourself out there in the situation when there is so much uncertainty, and just allowing things to be as they are. It's kind of going back to the present moment and just feeling what's around you and like just tapping into the senses as instead of touching into as much of like what's in your mind, thoughts that are about other topics that aren't happening at this moment. Because I think Andrew actually made a video recently of like we were just well, he didn't start it this way, but when you're sitting somewhere and you just start thinking of all of the different topics that aren't related to where you really are, and then you kind of go in your own world for a moment, and then you come back and you realize, oh, I'm just sitting in front of a laptop alone in a room, and I'm thinking about all these different people and all of these different events and all of these different circumstances in life, but it comes back to the present moment. So flow state, it is a bit easier to achieve when you're focused on the present moment and not focused about all of like the potentials or the what ifs and all of that sort of thing. That's it's kind of putting down the overthinking and just giving it to what you're actually experiencing from my perspective. But up on the screen there, we have the Dualistic Unity Life Troubleshooter, which allows you to ask questions, and it actually refers to previous episodes. So yeah, if you want to use that as a tool, if you have access to, I think the paid version of ChatGPT, you can ask questions about flow state or anything similar to that, and that will give you some information or advice based on their previous episodes. So that's really cool.
That is so cool. That is incredibly cool. What an awesome look. If we all had a troubleshooter for life, I know for many decisions I've made, a troubleshooter on hand would have been fantastic, but didn't have one, so made those decisions anyways. And no, I think it's fantastic. What I do want also to talk about are the weekend retreats, or the retreat, not the weekend. I mean, it's a retreat. Your next retreat, the next retreat that's coming up is a California one.
No, Virginia,
No, of course not.
that'll be February 1st through the 5th. So that'll be next weekend, I think.
Oh,
So it's an extended
wow, that
weekend.
kind of creeps right up on you, doesn't it?
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, because we're living life, people, like we are doing our thing and going on our side quests and our adventures, and we are the life troubleshooter. Like, let's keep it real. Like, you, as much as I love the DU life troubleshooter, it is a tool. It does have a lot of the insights and experiences that we have talked about in previous episodes. But I want to make sure that I remind people that you are the best life troubleshooter that you have first, and everything else is just a bonus, because no one knows your particular experiences and challenges as best as you. So as much as you can utilize the resources and tools around you, never forget that you're your best resource. And so everything else just adds to that. So I just wanted to make sure that I remind people that, that they are their greatest teacher. They can understand their life lessons like no one else can, and they can make considerations for the experiences that they had, the goals that they may continue to have, because it's very easy to think that something else or someone else can help you solve you, but you're not a question to answer. You're an experience to be had, and you're making it in every single moment. And so I was watching a show the other day, and they were talking to this woman, and she's about to give birth, and they're telling her, this is the biggest moment of your life. And I started crying as I'm watching it, because for me in that moment, it hit that every single moment is the biggest moment of my life, because I am living that moment. It is not just the weddings. It is not just the childbirth. It is not just the graduations and the promotions and the buying of the houses and the feeling better. It is not just those moments, those accomplishments. Every single moment that you are alive is the biggest moment of your life. So make the most of it, live it fully, enjoy it deeply, and enjoy the things that can help you maybe experience it differently. So I love cannabis for the things that it allows, the space that it gives me, that it lets me give myself. But I'm not surprised that the narrative is against cannabis and against psychedelic mushrooms, because those are things that encourage introspection. Those are things that help you become a more critical thinker, someone who takes more considerations, who doesn't just look at the past and haunts themselves with it, who looks at the past and sees lessons and applies those lessons as a consideration when they're making decisions going forward. But but alcohol helps you create more of an identity. It makes you feel more like a victim. It makes you, it doesn't give you a lot of space for growth. And so it doesn't surprise me that a system that was created out of fear encourages you to take things that amplify fear. And because it's not a structure, it's not a system that was created out of compassion that would encourage you to enjoy things that amplify compassion for others and yourself, and for your relationship with life that is ongoing. It's not always supposed to feel pleasant, but it is rich and deep and diverse and uncertain and unpredictable and spontaneous and magnificent. It is all those things. It is all or it feels like nothing, but it is always all.
But it should be all or nothing. It should be. I love that mentality of, look, living, it's the last time you're going to experience that moment. Right now, this moment that we're having is the last time we're ever going to experience it. Yes. It's so exciting, though, when you start to see everything in life that way. It is so exciting when you can apply that to everything you do. I wish everybody else was on that mindset of, but when they are, how much gets done, how we see through the clutter and get to enjoy that moment of life. Look, I mentally, luckily, I'm my brain's not totally fried. I can go back and still remember and picture and feel like the birth of my twins, the birth of all my children. And like you said, you were crying the other day when you saw. I cry when I think about it, because emotionally right now it comes up. And I love that I emotionally feel that way, that I still emotionally respond. And living in a moment, look, I'm tearing up now. You emotionally respond and you live it as you speak it. You live it as you breathe it. And that's life. That's something that we don't do enough of, because we're afraid of what people think of us, or we're afraid of what we think of us. Right? But when we stop thinking of ourselves that way, we breathe in life in every sweet and every not so sweet moment. But it's the last time you will ever get to experience. I love that. That's empowering. I feel empowered today now because of that. Thank you. All right.
And also the thinking of the past and the future, it kind of takes away from the present moment, and it doesn't allow you to feel right where you're at. So like there's even a lot of biases that come from holding on to the past. So if it can kind of fog your vision when you're making decisions, because like say you've had quite a few, you're applying for jobs and you've had quite a few interviews that don't go well, that can make you feel defeated or make you feel like it's going to be the same way when you walk into the next interview. So like it's just kind of setting the past down, even though it can be great to reflect on and just feel the moment that you were in again. Because I think it's Joe Dispenza who talks about when the brain is thinking of a memory from the past, it barely knows the difference between that past experience, and it gives you the same emotions as if you're going through it again. So if you just keep thinking of the past, it's going to be hard to make changes, because you're just reliving what's gone on in the past, and you're thinking it can't be a different outcome in the future. You're kind of, I forget the name of the specific bias, but it's based on your past experiences. You're limiting what you think the potential will be in the future, because you think it will be similar to what you've already gone through. So yeah, it's definitely limiting to constantly be thinking about the past and the future, because the truth is there's just a lot of uncertainty, and you don't know how things are going to play out. Even if you had past experiences that may seem similar to what you're going through now, it may not be as similar as you think.
But using those emotions, using those emotions can help guide the way we live our lives now. Look, when you said sometimes, when we go back to those emotions, we can't continue in life. We can't move on. But also living like the emotions I have in my children's birth, the emotions I had when I got married, you take those and they're the sweetest moments of life. The sweetest moments of life. And you remember those before you make a really bad decision sometimes. So you use the emotions in a good way. But I do believe, though, there are so many things you have to let go of so that you can continue on. You have to but I believe in letting go. It's not just emotionally, because emotionally it's hard to let go. There's a mental let go. There's a mental see-through when you could see through the muck and the clutter. And so, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I like how you said that, Oren. Like sometimes the emotions are a little more difficult to deal with, right? Because it's not that we're trying to get rid of them. We're not. You're right. They do inform our experience and our empathy and the way we're able to connect with other people, right? And that's where like the beauty of life comes in, is in the vulnerability. But I do agree that mentally it's a seeing through. It's a like calling your own bluff constantly. And Julia, I like that you brought up. I think you're referencing confirmation bias, right? Like we have a specific perception of the world, specific beliefs, and it when we're taking in information, we sort of filter it through what we already think to be true, and we'll kind of like not notice or disregard things that contradict what we already believe. But I think the shift comes in when you recognize that what you believe and what you think happened in your past isn't objective. Like that, like you think it happened a certain way, you perceive that situation in a very specific way, but that was only one perception of what happened. And once you recognize that, it doesn't have as much of a control on you. Like those habitual patterns might come up, yes, but when you're able to see them for what they are, they're able to transform into something else. And that's why I love the concept of neuroplasticity, that like our brain patterns literally change based on what we're thinking, what we're experiencing. And you're right, Julia, the more that we think about our past situations over and over again, the more ingrained they become, because that's just rehearsal, that's repetition. But also every time we rehearse a memory in our mind, we change it slightly, like because we fill in the gaps and then the whole memory is slightly different. And so over time, the more that you're recalling a memory, it's getting further and further away from the truth. So that's another reason to even be like, because not only was the perception limited in the first place, but at this point now, like you are so far away from what actually happened in that moment. And what you're holding on to is just what you needed to believe about that situation in order to confirm your current perception of yourself. Right. So once you can see that for what it is, like you can still, experience the emotions and, have patterns come up and sometimes do things that, you can now recognize are habitual, even if you know that you want to change them. And you don't have to beat yourself up about that either. Like it's not about constantly evolving and leveling up every day, because like we were saying before, this moment is all that fucking matters. This is our life, right? We are not the product of our life. Like I said before and about the podcast, like we are the process of our life. We are this moment. This moment is us. Like there's no fucking separation. And like that's what it's all about. It's not about letting go of this idea of yourself, letting go of beliefs, questioning these things in order to get somewhere. That's very much against the point, right? It's like we're just here to experience this experience as fully as we can. And like questioning is part of that, but it's also not the most important part of that. But it is a critical aspect to allow you to see more of what's there rather than trying to box yourself in constantly and like fighting your experience at every turn. It's more about just like seeing the possibility, knowing you're going to be okay, and allowing yourself to lean in. And that's when you can experience flow state, right? When you're like open but participating.
Is it mindfulness? I mean, is it so it's well-being. Flow state is, look, is it emotional? Is it also physical well-being? Do we combine these things to be able to get to a flow state? Can
It's
we be,
I
is it,
think it's I think flow state is what happens when you stop trying to go anywhere or try and achieve something, right? It's just your natural flow. And it's not even like the ideal way of being necessarily, because there is no best way, but it is just the most simple. It's the most relaxed, the most enjoyable, right? When you're just showing up without bringing all that extra weight, and then you can just be yourself and you're like, oh shit, I
how
can just do
hard,
this.
but how hard that is for so many people is just to be you. Don't be judgmental. Don't be this, that, nothing. Just coming to something without wanting anything, but to be part of the flow. And I guess you're right. That is flow state. Just showing up, just to show up and just to be, and hey, I'm here.
Kids do it all the time.
Yes.
We talk about it like it's something we weren't naturally always doing as children. It's just that we learned how to live according to a societally approved template with behaviors and traits and goals and certain,
Yeah, they
we
flow
we
like a bull in a china shop. And that's how children flow.
no, we went from
They flow
flowing
with
to
walls
marching.
down.
We went from flowing to marching in a straight line. Everybody one behind the other.
That's true.
That's what it felt like. We went from dancing to running. We run from one goal to the next, run from one expectation to the next. You meet an expectation, now you have a bigger one. But as children, we were constantly just existing. We were fully immersed in every activity. Nothing else existed for us other than the moment that we were living. And so that's why I love that I love the adults who get ridiculed, who are like, oh, they'll never grow up. And I'm like, thank goodness someone didn't. Thank goodness that somebody didn't grow up. What is this growing up? That life is void of joy and enthusiasm and excitement. And it's just this boring, dry task list that you're checking a box all the time. Like I love that there are people who just who would rather be ostracized, right? Because it's so funny that I'll talk to certain people and they're like, why are people so miserable? It's like, yeah, because they can't live. When they try to live, they get shunned. When they try to do something different, they get ridiculed, they get ostracized, they get fired from work, they don't make friends. And so because we so want that sense of connection, we'd rather sell out to have somebody next to you. I know plenty of people who had jumped from relationship to relationship, and I mean that both personally and professionally. They either jump from job to job, not knowing really what excites them, and they jump from relationship to relationship because they don't feel whole and complete. And it's not because they're not, it's because they've convinced themselves that something must be wrong with them because they're doing what society says and it doesn't feel right. They're doing what society says and they feel empty. So it can't be that society didn't give me the right instructions, it's that something must be wrong with me.
This is huge. Look, you right there. Everything you just said. Look, that should be bookmarked. That should be tiki-taki'd, insta-cha-cha'd, linky-winkied. I mean, look, as a segment, that should be put out there, and people should see that. That's exactly it. Look, that's why so many people are angry, not included, because they're not including themselves, because they feel taken, and they're just giving up and just going along with the get along, and they're becoming part of the marching ants of life. And that's depressing because we don't know how to scream anymore. We don't know how to fight anymore. Wow. I'm gonna be quiet. Wow.
And it comes back to expectations too. Just like having certain expectations from society can maybe make you want to fit a certain mold, but it doesn't have to be so concrete. And there should be a little bit of, gray area where you shouldn't have to fit this perfect mold and be that person, because we're changing all of the time and society's expectations are also changing all the time. So it's like we can't even keep up with what people expect from us. And a lot of it is kind of our own expectations that we're feeling the most. So once you kind of put down your own expectations of yourself, but still strive for what you're passionate about, then I feel like that's what can get you further, once you just follow what makes you feel good, really. And it's not so much about thinking about other people's perceptions and opinions and what they have to say, just going after what you want for your own reasons.
Easier said than done, people. Easier said than done. You're over here saying channel your child, your inner child. Let me tell you something. Yes, I understand. But, still easier said than done. And so how do we do that? How do we empower ourselves to find our inner child, to approach life with living for what we want, living for what we love? It's so hard in a world that expects so much out of you, that demands so much out of you. When we become ourselves, we put ourselves in danger from, with our employers. And that's one of the things I was even talking about. It's elevating relationships, but how do you elevate a relationship with an employer, with those that were afraid to ask for a raise, we're afraid to ask for days off? If you're on an hourly paycheck, you're afraid paycheck to paycheck. And when you're on a corporate level where or salary, just salary, nothing corporate. What corporate is? Nobody, I don't even know what the hell corporate is anymore. You're on a salaried level, you worry less until the hurricane comes in, and then you freak out. So when I say, all right, I have childish disregard when I am financially stable. I have that kind of, let me flaunt through society when I feel like when I have a few less responsibilities. But in life, when you got to have a job, you got to make sure the kids got braces, you got to make sure this and that, and it's a lot of things to think about. So how do I take all of that, and then when that sunset happens, be able to live it and soak that in and know that's the last time I will see that? And so I want to live with that kind of disregard in so many things now. When I'm dealing with people, I want to be that authentic and look at them and be like, holy shit, this is the last time we're going to have this interaction. They're probably going to look at me and be like, thank God. But right? But in that, I want to be that authentic without being the creepy guy that comes to the grocery store and is like, you and me, we're sharing this moment.
Oren, I think it's going to take some self-honesty and developing sensitivity and starting small, because people are constantly, or at least in my personal experience, it felt like when I realized that society's instructions were not working and I was doing fairly well. Like, we were working full time, going to college full time, volunteering at 3 nonprofits. We were getting straight A's. We were getting scholarships. We were being employee of the month. We had a full social life. We were killing it. Didn't feel like it was right. Right. And so it wasn't, but it felt like, oh my goodness, now that I've realized this, that this isn't working, that I'm doing well according to society standards, and something feels off. And I really couldn't explain it much more than that to myself, that it just feels off. And that could mean whatever it means.
What's next? Right.
But then it was like, okay, now that it's off, does that mean that I had to do a complete overhaul today? No. But being honest with myself is where I started, and starting small. What could I do at home? What could I do by myself? What could I do that is maybe free, that I don't have, it's not going to cost me a ton of money. I don't need to make friends with someone to get me access to a resource or a tool. What can I do at home? What can I do with my own relationship with myself? How can I be more authentic there? And then being self-honest with myself there allowed me to change the mindset that was driving the way that I was making decisions before. And as I changed internally, my environment reflected that. And it was little by little. And so I think you just start with a little bit of self-honesty that helps you build more self-awareness. You can dissolve the identity of who you should be to yourself and embrace the fact that you didn't know then, you don't know now. There's never going to be a point where you just know definitively without any doubt anything about yourself or about, things as a whole, but you can be honest with yourself and start small and just be authentic with yourself, and then that carries over across the board, personally and professionally. And so that's like the shortest snapshot of advice that I could give to myself and to someone else, because I can't give you a foolproof equation for how your life can be more authentic to you, but you can figure it out step by step.
Self-honesty.
Yeah, just
Self-honesty. Look, you said it right there, though. I think it's simplicity. I look at life in simple ways. And when we can start approaching life simple again without overcomplicating it, you said authenticity, simplicity, self-honesty. So you're going to have to be honest with yourself. You're going to have to tell yourself some truths and get real and be authentic with yourself. Look, and right there, that's something to take away. That right there is empowerment. That's empowering you. And no matter how you get there, no matter how you need to get there, that's the start. Look, you've got to bring yourself to the table. I think that's fantastic. I think definitely being honest with yourself and it's about looking forward. I think that's fantastic.
I think it's also a bit of a balance as well, like a balance of how much, sorry, losing the train of thought here, but a balance between how much, sorry, I forget exactly what I was going to say, but it'll come back.
If you want, I think we're on a similar train, if I'm correct.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like it's not about always like being relaxed and like soaking in it, like and savoring life and like all like just being in this state of comfortability all the time. Like one of the necessary and most beautiful aspects of life is all the shit we don't want to do. Right? Because that's where we're really learning about ourselves. And like, as much as we're like, oh, we have to do all this stuff in order to like enjoy our life for the weekend, right? But no, you can enjoy even the moments that you didn't let yourself enjoy before, that you thought you shouldn't enjoy, right? Like all of that is informing your perspective. And the more that you relax, the more value you see in those experiences. Even when it's not comfortable, even when it's not what you wanted to happen, like both parts are necessary.
Yes. So. And also just how we see, just how aware we are of other people when we're talking with them and how aware. So back to the self-honesty, here it comes. Where we're honest with ourselves about all aspects of ourselves, because we have like the good aspects and the bad aspects. It's all there. So just acknowledging everything that is possible for us to put out into the world for other people. Like sometimes you're going to be the villain in other people's eyes. Sometimes you're going to be great in their eyes. And it's just, we have to go through that experience to find areas to improve while also not being too hard on ourselves is kind of the balance that I was trying to explain, just showing that there's many different aspects to ourselves and we're not limited to just one definition of good or bad, where there's a whole spectrum to what goes on in our minds, and just that's how it transmits into the experience. It's just there's a whole bunch of different aspects of ourselves, and it doesn't have to be defined with good or bad alone. But I know that
No,
we
but it's
do
being
have to wrap
authentic.
up the
And I love
episode,
that.
but we can
And
have
it's
some
being
closing
really
thoughts here.
Well, so we're losing Amanda right now, right? You're leaving, but thank you,
Yeah.
by the way. I just want to say we appreciate it so much, you coming and being a part of the High and Empowered podcast. I'm telling you, after every single time we do these podcasts, I feel a little more empowered, a little more educated, a little more understanding, and just a little different way to look at things. So thank you, seriously, for coming and bringing your knowledge and your vibe. Truly enjoyed. And I can't wait to have you on as a guest again. We have so many things coming up, navigating the highs and lows of life, and some very serious, very deep subject matters here. But never,
Thank you all for
we approach it with childlike authenticity. I wish I was a kid again. That's what we say that. We say that because exactly what you had just said. That's our inner child. That's our inner strength. That's our inner flow of being able to walk into a room, be like, "Hey, everybody, I'm here." And that's how kids
thank
are.
you all for coming.
Right? They don't fear. They're not worried about what you think of them, and they're usually doing it in their underwear. And you're like, "Oh my God, put some clothes on." So, right? So, but that's what I'm saying. There's no fear. So that's what we take away from today.
The
No
fear is
fear.
there, but I say fear be
Authenticity.
damned. Fear be damned. I can do anything with the fear, with the doubts, and I can still jump in anyway.
Use it.
So
Use it.
I just don't have to believe it.
Look,
I
like
don't have
Julia
to take
said,
it.
we have to
Yeah.
go
But
through it and
absolutely.
grow.
Thank you so much, guys, for having us. I know that we will be having you as a guest on our podcast soon, so we're just excited to be here. It's for the beginning and to support you, and we'll be excited to join many more times and keep this conversation going, because it's a blend of introspection and thought melting content and focusing on self-awareness and embracing of the present reality, as uncertain as it may be, and just kind of embracing a neutral perspective, right? Because it's not negative, it's not positive, it's not good or bad, it's just everything that's available, and there's so much that we can do with it when we accept that uncertainty. So thank you so much, guys, for having an amazing conversation, and I'm so glad to be able to come back again and continue it and hear more of the adventures that you've been on, because life is an ongoing adventure, instructions not included.
Well, let me tell you something. If you
appreciate
haven't,
hearing.
check out their show. Right, and that's true. I love it. Instructions not included. Check out Jackie and Amanda's show. What is the name of the show again?
It's just Dualistic Unity with Jackie and Amanda. Well, it's Dualistic Unity. We're doing our own segment though, and then we have our live episodes on Fridays. Do You Real? They're published as podcast episodes after the fact. So check us out. And if you haven't listened to Dualistic Unity before, start with episode 1. And thank you guys both for having us on. This has been a great conversation. I love how we just showed up and allowed whatever was going to happen to unfold. And we're going to keep doing it over and over again because it's fun.
And join, be a part of things, Julia.
One more note to add here. I just want to say thank you all for sharing your experiences, because I feel like as we bounce each other's experiences off each other, that's what really helps us to learn and grow, and hearing different perspectives is really helpful at the end of the day, just to experiment and see where things go and hear other people's different opinions, and that's how we grow at the end of the day, right? So it's been amazing having you guys here, and we're excited to connect more in the future and have you on again.
I say that's pretty awesome. Everybody, great show, and we're going to end this here. Catch us next Wednesday, right here, High and Empowered, coming at you LinkedIn Live. But later on, this is rebroadcast, I think, on the podcasts, on the podcast and whatever. Okay, and it's whatever. I didn't say it like that. But it's rebroadcast in other places, so you can catch us in other places. But right here, LinkedIn Live, every Wednesday, 12 o'clock. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next Wednesday.